we start this week the beginning of the Parshat and of the Torah. We restart the Torah, and it's important to remember that when we learn Torah, when we learn the Parsha, that there are two aspects of the Torah. The Midrash calls it the black fire on white fire, and then the black ink on parchment. What the Midrash means is that there is a physical Torah that we have, we hold, we learn, but there's something deeper and overarching over it, the spiritual Torah, the Torah that our soul connects with and is really there as a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and especially when we deal with the beginning of Bereshit, where the Torah is telling us things that really are very cryptic, and it cannot intend and mean to tell us what we may call the story of creation, because it doesn't tell us enough information. It very cryptically tells us things that are going on. For instance, in the beginning, it says there was nothing and God created, and then there was darkness and there was a spirit over the water. Who mentioned water, right? So it really doesn't give us the information. So we have to look at what the Torah is saying on the physical level, but also understand that there is the Eish Shechara al Gabe Eish Levana, the black fire on the white fire, meaning that there's a spiritual, non-physical element to the Torah that we're trying to tap into and to learn from and to receive. So the first section, first parak, really deals with the days of creation, and as is obvious from the days of creation, whether we accept, like Rashi says, that the sun and the moon and the stars, meaning all of the astrophysics, right? All of the planets and the planetary world was already created from the start, and it was only placed in the orbit that we have it right now on the fourth day, and that's what the fourth day means, that the sun and the moon were placed in its place. Or we go more like the Ramban, that it actually wasn't created until later. Either way, we understand that the days we have of a 24-hour revolution of Earth, what we may call sun coming up and sun going down, cannot be the simple meaning of the verse of the first day, second day, third day, because those systems were not in place. The system of a daily revolution only happens on day 4, as it says, and there will be the illuminations, and this is in verse 14, and there will be the illuminations in the sky to separate day and night, and to give you an ability to know time and dates. So what's clear is that when it means days, it's not coming to tell you a specific day time, right? 24-hour periods of what happened, but rather epochs or concepts, and that there were 7 of these, with Shabbos being the ultimate. In fact, we have many old sources that give thousands of years per day, or other calculations, thousands of years per hour of every day, based on a pasuk that says Yom Elef Shana B'Einecha Ki Yom Esmo, 1,000 years in your eyes is like just a day. Various interpretations. However, what's clear is that the Torah is not meaning to give us a history of the world, a history, a natural history of how Big Bang, how water turned a rock into bacterium, right? It's cool that the Torah says that let the water give forth creatures of life, but it's not. And now we know that it was water that caused a rock to turn to bacterium under certain under certain conditions. But that's not the meaning of this. And when people try and fit natural history with Torah, it's not that they misunderstand natural history. I think that they're misunderstanding the purpose and the meaning of these stories of the creation. It's coming to teach us something deeper and something more, and hopefully we can tap into a few of these ideas of Bereshit, of what it's trying to teach us and give us. So it begins with Bereshit, bara Elokim es hashamayim es haaretz. At first, Hashem created time. That's the teaching of Vilna Gaon, based on Midrash and earlier teachings. Hashem created time. Time in and of itself is a creation. Outside of time-space, there is no passage of time. It all happens at once, as it were, and that's Hashem, Haya, Hoveh v'yeh. Hashem was, is, and will be, because Hashem is the will of the world that is outside of the time-space, the time continuum. But yet, Hashem allowed Hashem willed it that there should be spirit of Hashem within this physical world. And that is the chiddush of the first day. That is the unique idea of the first day. That in spite of the very essence of the physical world is a limitation. The very essence of physical world is a passing of time. It's matter, and as such should have no place for the infinite. Yet the infinite allows for spirituality, a connection of the divine, the spirit of Elokim merachefes on the face of this water, and that's the first development that is so crucial, that we have within the world an ability to have spirituality. Even within the physical world, there is a break between lower waters and upper waters. Physical matter for the sake of physical matter, and physical matter for the sake of spiritual elevation. And that's a split there. And then we have land coming forth from the water. The water gives place for land. Water is the all-encompassing space that you can feel, and we see the pasuk in regards to the days of Mashiach. The world will be filled with knowledge of Hashem, like the waters fill the seabed. Water is the envelopment of life and existence. In fact, the Gemara tells us that for every creature there is on the land, there's a related or similar creature in the sea. It's not about the relationship of these creatures as much as to say that there is an independent world under the sea that is not connected to on the land. And on the land, we have to develop a relationship with Hashem. And in the sea, the concept is that we have that existence of the relationship with Hashem. As it begins, V'ruach Elokim merachefes al panei hamayim. The spirit of Hashem hovers on the water. So the water in and of itself already has that relationship with the divine. It's an envelopment, right? Because when you're in the water, it is all around you. Whereas on earth, we stand on it, and as we'll see later, it is for the human to elevate themselves from earth upward. And so here we have the inauguration of the concept of land, where we now have the struggle that the human will have. From that grows forth potential, trees and fruit. And on the fourth day, we now have the celestial beings. We have sun, moon, stars. Essentially, everything now is revolving in its place. It creates time, awareness, whereas time was passing from the beginning of creation, the creation of time. Here we have a time system which allows for us to develop within that time and to start developing that attachment to the spirituality. Then come the living creatures on day 5 and 6 in a progression out of the sea, meaning out of the place of knowledge of and connection to Hashem, that out of there come living beings. So out of the water sprouts forth life, and the spirit of Hashem is hovering on that water. And so everything emanates with the ability to connect with the divine. And ultimately comes the human being on the 6th day in preparation for Shabbos. And here comes a new change. Up until now, Hashem dictated what should be with each step. And here there's a change. And let's look at 27 and 28 in the first chapter. Vayivra Elokim es ha'adam b'tzalmo. Hashem created the human in his image. B'tzelem Elokim bara oso, in the image of the divine. Zachar nekeva bara osam, and they were created male and female. Vayivarech osam Elokim vayomer lahem. And Hashem blessed them and said to them, Peru revu, be fruitful and multiply. And this is unique in that, whereas before the animal is told not vayomer lahem, said to them, but rather it says Hashem blessed them, saying they will be fruitful and multiply. They naturally will multiply. Here Hashem tells to them, be fruitful and multiply. And umilu es haaretz, fill the land, chivshua, conquer the land. And not only that, but also the fish of the sea, birds of the heaven, and all the animals. Not for food. As the next verse says, I give you the grasses to eat. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So rather, here is a change in all of creation. Up until now, creation was yesh me'ayin, ex nihilo, from nothingness into something. Then comes yesh mi-yesh. There was an initial yesh mi-ayin, as the Ramban says. The vayivra, and God created, is only the beginning. Berasit bara Elokim, and then from that, everything else is vayas. Hashem made of that heavens and earth and waters, and from the water and from the earth, everything develops from the previous. That's yesh mi-yesh. And here we have, for the human being, a new dimension, not ex nihilo, but a new creation. The human being, in the image of the divine, has the ability to be creative, has the ability to create from something else something new. And that's the concept of min hakoach el hapol, to take something from the potential and bring it into the reality. Everything else in creation just follows its natural course. And that natural course is what brings forth these things. So it's a yesh mi-yesh. It's creating something from something else. The human is somewhere in between. It's not ex nihilo. It's not creating out of nothingness. But it is creative in what it can do. It can bring something from that wasn't there, but was there in potential, and make that something else. And that's uniquely the human obligation and human ability. And that's called das, knowledge, the understanding of the inner and bringing that forth to something else. Hence, our relationship with Hashem is called das, is not just the knowledge of Hashem, the awareness of Hashem's existence, but das is to be able to know the other, and meaning to know the core and to bring forth from it its potential, a new potential. Min hakoach el hapol, from the potential to the reality. That is a unique gift to the human. And we'll see a little bit more about this in the next chapter when when it talks about specifically the role of the human in creation. And Hashem says, I gave you everything on earth that you can eat from, and all fruit that you can plant and replenish, and all the animals. And Hashem saw that everything was Tov Ma'od. In the beginning of the second chapter, by the way, the chapters are not a Jewish concept. They are a Christian concept. We use it because it is expedient and it's useful, it's pragmatic, but the breakup of the chapters is not ours, and often does not correlate with the setup of the Torah. So the between the 6th and 7th day is where the second chapter begins. But for us, the second chapter really begins at Pasuk Daled after Shabbos. So Vayichulu Hashamayim va'aretz v'chol and Hashem completed all of creation. And Hashem completed on the 7th day all the work that he created. Rashi here points out from the Midrash, what was created on the 7th day? Everything was already created in the days beforehand. Rashi says, the world was missing one thing, menucha. Ba'as Shabbos, ba'as menucha. Shabbos came, along with it came menucha. We often talk about menucha as rest, as, resting, but that's not the correct term for menucha. That would be, in modern Hebrew, we say lanuach, to rest, but it doesn't mean that. And the term would be the shavas, to cease, or other terms like that. Menucha is related to the word nachas. When we think of nachas, it's not resting. They've grown up, now we can rest. No, it's when it all comes together. When all of the points of work and all of the information and all of the teaching comes together and culminates in something that's harmonious. For 7 days, or for 6 days of creation, for each period of creation, various things were being set into motion and formed from one another for the purpose of the human being having the ability to be creative within that space, within all that was there. And finally, Shabbos comes. It's when everything is now synchronized. It's in sync. There's harmony within all of creation. Hashem looked and saw, v'hinei tov ma'od. It is exceedingly good. Exceedingly good. The Midrash has many interpretations of what the me'od is. But the ma'od one is Adam. Same words as Adam. V'hinei tov ma'od is Adam. The ability for the human being to bring the potential out from creation. And that is and that's when harmony comes, because all of the systems, the astrological systems, the zoological systems, the ecological systems, all of it now is working harmoniously. Now it's all together. That's Shabbos, Menucha. And that was a creation of all systems go. The example I can think of is an engineer puts together a machine, right? All the parts are there. They're all connected. There's one thing left to do, to flip the switch and make it go. And now everything's working in harmony in the way it's supposed to be. Everything was made beforehand, but until it actually interacts in the healthy way, it doesn't have that. What was created on the 7th day is menucha. It's all done. Nothing more to do. Now it just has to run. And our celebration of that Shabbos is that while 6 days, it says, right, Asher bara Elokim la'asod, Hashem created the world for us to do. The world is for us to do. However, Shabbos tells us we have to step back and see Hashem put it all into motion. All that we utilize, we're creative. We're bringing out new potentials, but all from the source, all from that system that's running. And that's Shabbos. And so we step back and we're not creative on Shabbos. Shabbos, we don't create anything. Only what was is what will be. Because we recognize the harmony of the universe and the system working together. The cosmos running in tandem and running as it's meant to be. So that's the Shabbos, bringing that spiritual connection of Hashem into the world, where we are recognizing, even though that we imitate the 6 days in creation, on the seventh day we imitate that letting go, letting be, and enjoying the world that is. In the second part of the Torah telling us about creation, the Torah tells us on the day of creation. The day of creation is the one. The day of creation is the one time or meaning that we have as a connection to it. And there's an interesting difference. The beginning talks about, the first parak talks about Bereshit, creation time. The second talks about Toldot, Toldos HaShamayim V'Aretz, the births of Shamayim V'Aretz. And this is in verse 4. What does that mean? As we talked about, up until now, everything was being made either ex nihilo, from nothingness, something, yesh mi'ayin, something from nothing, or yesh mi'yesh. There's something there and it was formed and created into something. Yet, there were latent potentials that were not coming forth. And here, Eila told us, here's the births. Here are the potentials coming forth. And for that, it needed human. Look at verse 5. And all the plants have not yet come forth on the land. And the grasses of the field have not yet grown. Why? Because Hashem did not bring rain on the land. Why? Because man was not there yet to work the land. Rashi says there was no one to appreciate creation. What does that mean, no one to appreciate creation? Hashem needed a pat on the back, good job? No. It means that it needed to be creative. The purpose is for the human being to bring potential forth. That's what this unique distinction of the human from other animals is. Rabbeinu Tam says, Adam Yodea es atzmo and da'aso. A person knows himself and their thoughts. That means I know not only that I am, but I know my thoughts. I can plan, I can think. I'm aware of potential that I can bring forth. That's what's unique about the human, and that's what this says. All potential of the world was there, but latent. For there was no human to bring that forth yet. And how did the human bring that forth? La'avod, to work the land. Also, la'avod, to pray. I have to recognize the Creator and in partnership work on making it happen. It's a very unique thing. The ability for us to fully engage in the creative process, but recognizing we're creating with all the nature and out of the nature that the Creator put into it. So we're creative, but different than the Creator. The Creator made it ex nihilo, of nothing, something. And we're taking of something and creating something that wasn't there, but was only latent, was deep inside somewhere in potential, but not there yet. And that brings us to the tree of life and to the tree of knowledge. What are these enigmatic trees? Eitz HaChaim, the tree of life. Life is clearly the gift from above. That is the creation. We cannot give it to ourselves. But the knowledge of good and evil That is something that is creative, that comes from the other. And that we have to do within the confines and within the connection that Hashem has given us. So Hashem created the garden, and in it placed the human, which was formed by Hashem. And that's after blowing into his nostrils the gift of life. Chaim, Eitz HaChaim, that's from Hashem. And Hashem made all beautiful trees there and said, you can have of anything, but in the midst there's the Eitz HaChaim and Eitz HaDas Tov Hara, the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. And you can have all of those, but you can have everything, but not those. Those must come from an upper source. The potential of the creative potential that the human has will be completely out of control if it doesn't have the core base, the knowledge where it's coming from. It must know its source. It must have a tree, that which it's creating from. And Or HaChaim explains in his commentary on the Torah, it doesn't say that the tree of life or the tree of fruit, good and evil, or fruit. Rather, it was the tree itself. The tree itself was good for taste and looked nice. As the Midrash says, it was the tree that tasted like the fruit. The tree itself was it. That's not potential. That's not bringing out a new creation. That's the source itself. The Torah meant for us to understand we are creative humans. That's the mind we have, and we must use that. And that's what makes us unique. The ability to turn the knowledge we have and utilize the nature that's with us and around us and bring forth something new. Be creative in the image of the divine. Be creative within the world. But we have to be anchored in the Eitz HaDas Tov Hara. In the tree itself is the fruit. Meaning the world Hashem gave us itself is where the potential is. And we always have to be connected with that. But if we try and break from that, I have my own new ideas. That's where we've broken from the connection to Hashem. It goes forth telling Adam, they have to go into the Gan and to serve it, to work it, and to guard it. To work it and to guard it is both on a spiritual level. As we said, every layer here is both fire, black fire on white fire, and ink on parchment. On the black fire on white fire part, it is the ability for the human being to be destructive spiritually to the world. That my actions are not only have the ability to break an ecology, to break a system that's in the physical world, but so too in the spiritual realms. That the work we do, if we utter words of tefillah, that brings kedusha to the world, that brings holiness to the world. If we do an act of kindness, if we connect with Hashem in our mind and in our heart, these bring tahara and kedusha to the world. La'avda l'shamar, it is to work the world and to protect the world, and also to work and protect the physical world. As the Midrash says in Koheles, if you allow for the world to be destroyed, even one branch, one tree, who will bring it back? Mm-hmm. So a very powerful thing, both physically and spiritually. The purpose here is in this, is told over here in this part. Shalishi, which starts at Pasuk Chaf, goes into the human recognizing the need for male and female union. This is an interesting idea, right? That in order to be creative, Hashem could have made the human just like many cells, just self-reproductive. It didn't need to be that it connects with another in order to be creative. And more so, Hashem could have made all, even if Hashem wanted some sort of connection, it didn't have to be a different type of human. Hashem didn't have to make Zachar unakeva bara'am, creation of the male and the female. In order to further create a male and female, it requires a male and female. Lo matza ezer kenegdo. And the reason for that is that it is easy for us to be blinded in this mission of bringing out potential, our own potential, others' potential, the world's potential, a fruit's potential, a field's potential, scientific potential. All those things are creative, and we need to be able to do that. But we need a check. We need checks and balances. And the way to do that is to have two humans that have in nature a different structure. One can carry a child, while one can give the initial potential for that, the initial power for that. One can nurture the child into existence and into life, while the other has to only stand by and assist that. There are many differences. By doing so, Hashem gave a partnership of checks and balances. Is there a helpmate? Kenegdo, that's against, with a nature that's different, which will allow for the human being to become elevated in the sense of where you work off the other and are able to grow in that way. And so even though that as the Gemara says, du partzufin barosam, that from the initial moment of creation, they're already there as two, as the verse says, zachar nekeva barosam. But the ability to recognize that we need to work together to help each other. Furthermore, the Adam, the male, being born min ha'adama, from static soil, and the Isha being ki min ha'ish lukacha, for from the man she was taken, was created from a being that already has a soul, or a human that already has a soul, and so they're already beginning with as a spiritual being. By the way, why in our tradition being born from a Jewish woman makes someone automatically Jewish, because it's already born with the innate spirituality that the Isha has, having been created from the bone, from the part of a being that already had a spirit and a connection with Hashem. But the concept is that lo tov hayot Adam lavado. It is not good for Ha'adam to be alone. We need to be there as a checks and balances for each other, to be able to look at and see, okay, so what is my initial thought, and what is the challenge to that thought? And it's very hard for us to do that to ourselves. And so we need an Ezer Kenegdo, a helpmate against. Chapter 3 in the common chapters, which is really a part of this as well, is that there was a third being within this mix. And that third being is the animal being that attempts to be elevated like the human. And in this case, the image of that is the serpent. And the serpent arguing with the elevated being, saying, you can do this on your own. You don't need the tree of life and tree of knowledge that Hashem gave you. Because he's only afraid that maybe you're going to figure it out on your own. You're going to do things on your own. Hashem needs you to be dependent on it. This is a very unique idea. We long for a certain level of independence, because the animal has that. The animal doesn't have to think and be aware of, well, yes, I want to do this, but what does my mind tell me? Because as we said, the uniqueness of the human is not just that they're intelligent, but the intelligence is the awareness of that intelligence. It's not just intelligence. There are animals that are intelligent, but the awareness of that intelligence and to utilize that intelligence. That's yodea et atzmo ve'edato, knowing oneself and its das. And the animal wants to tell the human, you don't need that. You can, if it feels good to you, then it's good. If it's right to you in your eyes, then it's right. And that's what the serpent told Adam and Chava. And that is the third element trying to be in and separate. And as such, it enters within the human the potential to just be animalistic. And as such, it opened their eyes to their nakedness, and Hashem had to challenge them at that, send them out of the garden. Someone have a question?
Yeah. Before the serpent,
Yeah.
it almost sounds like where the Adam and Chava are like angels. They're only able to do what's good.
Well, not totally, because there's a command of what they can or cannot do, right? They can and cannot partake in, and they are commissioned with something important, to bring out the potential in everything.
Okay.
Right? That's pru urvu emilu et haaretz v'chivshua. Be fruitful, multiply, go into the earth, right, and conquer it. Meaning, bring forth all that's possible out of it, but not on your own account, not what you think is the potential and the good, but what the giver and creator has intended for it. Right? We today have the tremendous genius that we can bring forth things that were not accessible before. We have it, but it may not have been intended for us to use that way. Mm-hmm. Right? And then we do, and it becomes destructive. But I'm bringing out a potential that was there. Yeah, but it wasn't meant to be. That was meant to be left there. Whatever, I'm not getting into any particular thing, but we can all think of things that we're harnessing today, but maybe we didn't need to. Maybe we'd be better off if we hadn't. Maybe we can see that it's leading to things that are not all that good. So we've harnessed it. We've brought out that potential. I think we can all agree that Japan would have been better off without the atom bomb. And maybe the world all over would be better. But we've harnessed something. We brought out. We found the potential. We took it. We made it, right? It's genius. But that wasn't a part of Dol Shamra, to work the world and to protect it. We got it. We did it. And now we have to outdo everyone else that wants to do it so that we're not threatened, right? That's just one. We can think of dozens and dozens more like that. So the purpose was to bring forth the potential, but within the confines of what it's meant to be. Don't go to the root itself. Don't break the tree. Don't eat the tree. It has to be something that is a fruit from the source. You're making that which Hashem intended for it and making something out of it. It's very powerful in the genius of the human to bring forth potentials that, that could not have been done before, but not everything that we bring forth is always the best. And
how
now we
do
know some of those things that we're checking ourselves. Like from most of the world say, you know what? No cloning humans, right? We don't want to go there. Do we have the potential today? Yeah, maybe. We got something like that. But we already recognize we're not eating that tree of life or that tree of knowledge. So that's the potential was always the concept, bring forth the potential with a limit. And they stumbled in that to some degree, right? We're running out of time. Let's jump into the fourth chapter. Well, right before the fourth chapter, which is in Revi, which is our fourth chapter, in verse 24 of Gimel Chav Daled 3:24, Hashem took Adam, the Adam, being both male and female, Adam and Chava, took them out of the Gan Eden. And then there's the fiery sword that is spinning to guard the path to the tree of life. It is often interpreted to mean that they protect the tree of life so that man not come back to it. But Rav Hirsch writes, no, quite the contrary. The tree of life is the message from Hashem of how to live. And unfortunate occurrences in the world remind us that we have to be cognizant of that mission. That flaming sword turning keeps us from deviating off the path back to the tree of life. We, as you know, just to use the example we used before, sometimes we think we've harnessed something great and we got it, and then it's a flaming sword and we realize, ooh, that we deviated. We got to get back onto the path of the tree of life. There are many such moments where we look at it like, oh, that was not where we intended or should have gone, and we now have to get back to our purpose. Lishmor derech. So they stand as the guardrails of the path to the tree of life. And if ever we start slipping off, those flaming swords are there to remind us, this is not where you want to go. In Perek Daled, chapter 4, it talks about Adam and Chava having their first two children in a very unique teaching in the words of the names. The first child born, Cain, Vatomer, and she said, Kanisi ish es Hashem. I have formed a human. I have created a human with God. And the second one was Havel. Havel being, it's just a breath. It's just for naught. Cain being so detached from God because of the name of I am independent, I have been able to create, ends up destroying his brother. And therefore has to detach from God, can no longer connect with Hashem. It's very unique that after he murders his brother, Hashem says, you are banished from before me, meaning you can't have a relationship. What happens to Hevel? It says, what happens to Cain? In verse 17, and he bore a child, Chanoch, and he was a builder of cities, and he called the city like his son, Chanoch. Cain became a city builder. Very unique idea in the Torah, that to live in a city is a detachment from God. If you don't live with the earth, you're detached. In a city, you have the ability to be completely independent from Hashem. I'm the shoemaker, and you're the tailor. You're the smith, and you're the baker. And I make for you, and you make for them. And we don't have to connect with the divine. We can all do it ourselves. But when you live on the earth, you must connect with the divine. Kain, being detached from Hashem, becomes a city builder. We live in cities, but we have to remember within that to connect to where the source of everything is and appreciate it. Ultimately, it goes through the creativity of each generation, the children of each generation losing the connection with Hashem more and more until the generation that needed to call out in the Shem Hashem, meaning it was no longer self-evident that people had a relationship with Hashem, they now needed to call it out, and eventually came to destruction to Noah. So that's a brief overview of this immensely important parsha in understanding our role in this world.